And I'm going to start the conference. It is 2:30. Oh, Nikki, that's fine. Fernando's going to take care of it. If you can just let anybody in the lobby that's waiting or admit anyone into the conference that's waiting to get in. So, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Information Technology Security Services Bidders Conference. This Bidders Conference is for our RFQC event number GTA 98000-ERFQC-0402024. We thank you guys for your interest in this solicitation, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here today. My name is Yolanda Reeder, and I am the issuing officer for this event. Let's take a look at the agenda. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Give me a thumbs up when you actually can see the screen. Thank you, guys. We'll take a look at the agenda. And after our formal introductions, we will discuss the conference objective and rules. We'll give an overview and background, some solicitation highlights. We will have a demonstration of the sourcing tool, Jagger, which is used to input your bids. We have some things for you to remember when you're placing your bid. We'll review the schedule of events, some important dates for you to remember, and then we'll finally have a question and answers period. Please note that this conference is being recorded. It'll be uploaded to the event in Jagger for your future reference. So, once again, my name is Yolanda Reeder, and I am the issuing officer for this event. I'm a sourcing manager here with Georgia Technology Authority. I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Mike. I'll turn it over to you, Mike, for your introduction.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming. And I'll apologize. This is kind of my first bidders conference. So Yolanda's drugged me into this kicking and screaming. So I'll apologize up front. But again, my name is Mike Davis. I'm the deputy CISO for the state of Georgia. And this pool of or this bid, this RFQC is actually falls directly under my organization.
So we may have Jeff and Steve to join at that time. We'll ask them to introduce themselves. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and I think Jeff is on, so he might be speaking later in the question or later on, but he did tell me he's not camera ready. I said I'll be the beautiful face of OIS. So there you go.
Hey, all right,
hey, Londa.
Jeff.
Yeah, hey, Londa.
Right.
This is Jeff Deason. I actually work for Mike Davis, so I'm the director for the enterprise security governance, risk, and compliance team under Mike. So
thank you, Jeff. Thank you for that introduction. So, conference objective. This conference is to provide a general overview of the ERFQC process and the purpose of the procurement. We're also going to present the Jagger sourcing tool, a demonstration of that tool, and allow you the opportunity to ask questions. A few rules and guidelines. These are pretty important. So it's imperative that you guys respect the procurement process. We ask that you don't speak to any other staff members other than the issuing officer, myself, regarding this solicitation. All questions should be directed to the issuing officer, myself. We will make every attempt to answer all questions during this conference. However, some of the responses may be deferred to our Q&A board, which you can view in the event later. Any questions you have during the conference should be posted in the chat, and answers will be provided at the very end of this conference. And once again, If we have some questions that we're deferring, you could read the answers to those later in the event in Jagger. We ask that you please include your name and supplier name in the chat along with each question. And as I hand it over to Mike to do an overview and background, we are going to highlight the presentation and we're going to come off of our cameras. So I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Yolanda. So some of you, and apologies, I can't really see everyone who's here. Some of you might be familiar with our current IT security services contract pool. This is a vehicle that's been in place for a number of years now, and it's primarily been utilized by the Georgia Technology Authority, henceforth we'll say GTA, OIS, Office of Information Security team, to conduct third-party assessments on state agencies or state agency security programs. It is time for renewal for that pool. So that's what this is. So if you're currently a member of the ITSS pool, then this is the renewal for that pool. So if you want to stay in there, this is what you got to do. The intent here is we've kind of gone through a process of going through looking at the statement of need, which I believe is you all should have access to as part of the bidders package. Effectively, there's going to be the mandatory things that everyone has to answer yes to at the beginning, and then effectively the scored section is going to have mandatory requirements for the first 8. It is a scored, but it's going to, the program consists of security program assessments. Those program assessments include maturity, security control, implementation, risk, application risk, network architecture, wireless security assessments. All of those things are kind of in scope for the way that this is utilized. And I'm not going to go into great detail on these things. The other piece of this is, again, security controls assessment and then the assessment of risk as well at the security program level and or application level. Network architecture assessments, as I stated before, evaluation of the architecture, make sure that it's compliant, things like that. And then also, the capabilities to perform wireless networks security assessments as well. Penetration testing and vulnerability assessments and all that. Those and security incident readiness assessments are all kind of your company needs to be able to do those things to be part of the pool, right? That's kind of the minimum thing. Now, what we've kind of added on to here in this solicitation is something that, different vendors in the last solicitation and last pool, some were able to provide some of these services, some were not. But we kind of wanted to formally codify that. So continuing on from security services as the optional services are things like, incident response services. So we might have the need to have a third-party vendor be able to come into a state agency and provide, real-time incident response or digital forensics or consulting along those lines, right? So we have agencies that might need some services to help work through their incident response plans and building those out and ensuring that they're, that they meet state requirements as well as federal regulatory, guidelines as well if they're an agency that has regulated data. Another optional feature here that, was put in is cybersecurity training and education. One of the things that we kind of provide to most of state agencies is kind of a general user cybersecurity training package and platform. But one of the things that might be necessary is to help an agency develop, targeted or specific training, such as, IRS, requirement trainings, or maybe they've got a special application or program that require the development of a specialized training regimen, right? So that type of a thing as well is being evaluated. And again, another piece of this is that some of our vendors have done in the past is to assist agencies with development of security documentation, such as security policy and system security plans, right? So our agencies have varying degrees of capability, and some have asked for assistance, preparing for audits. Some have asked for assistance creating documentation that are required that they just don't have the staff or the knowledge or the skill set to do. So that might be more, it might behoove them, instead of hiring a person to have a contract in place, to maybe create a documentation package, or to assist them with their, their dash ones, as it were, for 853. So that is a big piece as well. So we kind of wanted to formally codify that as part of this. Again, so we are looking to what each of the respondents' capabilities are in those areas. Another thing that got tossed in there as an optional is physical security, right? So in the ability to go on, and I don't know how heavily this will be utilized, but certainly wouldn't hurt if your firm is capable of performing that. Please do respond as such for physical security or on-premises assessments of physical security. And again, other types of value-added consulting as well. Just various different things that maybe we haven't thought to capture here. We kind of want to allow that to be inclusive, but anything that we haven't mentioned that you feel is worthwhile, please include that. One of the things that we got on here too is on this slide here is artificial intelligence management. That's kind of an optional thing. Of course, AI is the big new thing. So, any experience or any insights that you maybe offer or might be able to add to the pool, as it were, for your experience or work in the field of AI, or AI regulation, or AI management of AI and that. So, and that's really kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, we're looking to put together this pool, and these are we are going to continue as OIS to perform third-party assessments on agencies from time to time. The last couple of years that kind of trailed off a little bit because of some other programs, but that's something that's probably going to pick back up again. I'm not sure to what degree, but remains to be seen. But we certainly have utilized the pool a lot more recently in helping agencies prepare documentation, as well as prepare for things like ATO, third-party assessments for the purposes of obtaining ATO. That's kind of a recent thing. So yeah, and that's really it in a nutshell. That's the pool. We're putting the pool together to make it useful, to make it easy, and to make it quick for agencies and GTA OIS to be able to tap into a pre-vetted pool of vendors who understand how we do business as a state, and understand the nuances of doing business with a state agency, because it's not the same as the commercial environment. So I appreciate it, and thank you for your time. And if any questions at the end, I will attempt to answer them to the best of my ability. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Just to revisit the original services slide for those that joined late. These were the services Mike were discussing. These are mandatory. Some of them are mandatory. With the mandatory services, you would have to be able to offer that group of services. The optional services is just what it says. It's optional. These are services we're not requiring you to offer, but it would be nice if you were able to offer these services. But the mandatory services, all of these services you would need to offer. So we'll go on to the solicitation highlights. Thanks again, Mike. Next,
Absolutely.
we will cover Next, we will cover the solicitation highlights. These are a few areas of the solicitation that I thought would be important to mention. Mike had mentioned some of them already, but you will see some of them in the information during my Jagger demonstration. So the first is RFQC requirements. We have prerequisites, where under the prerequisites, you will have certifying statements that you'll need to go in and certify that you've read the statement. It'll be a check mark where you'd have to actually paste a check mark saying, I read this. And there'll also be files that you need to download and either sign them, complete them, and then upload them into your supplier attachments. Then you'll have mandatory questions. As Mike mentioned, you'll have to answer yes or no. In this case, they'll have to be all yeses for mandatory questions. And then mandatory scored, where you'll be required to answer in narrative form. And the additional scored as well. We're expecting narrative answers for those. Additional scored is optional. So I want you to make note of, for the narrative answers for mandatory scored and additional scored, there are limitations that we're placing on the amount of information you can return. So just be sure you're staying within the guidelines of answering the questions. Maybe a page limit or a 2-page limit. Just ensure that you're staying within those guidelines when you respond. The other important section is the insurance requirements. It's located in section 3 in attachment A, the ERFQC. You want to make sure you're reading those thoroughly to see what our requirements are for insurance. Also, the master service agreement. That's something else you'd want to read thoroughly. It's attachment F, and it's what we call our terms and conditions. You guys probably have a legal area that would actually help you with this, but you want to be sure that if you have exceptions, that you're submitting those exceptions along with your bid. You want to mention the comments or terms, the language that your company cannot agree to. And lastly, we would have scores and award. All responses that are timely and pass the initial administrative review will be thoroughly evaluated by our evaluation team. You'll receive a total technical score. Suppliers whose score surpass that threshold that we've denoted as 575 points will be identified as a qualified contractor. Now, I want to go back for a second to the additional scored. Remember I said that was optional? That's a section where you can earn additional points. The 575 points is out of a total of 1,000 points. You can actually obtain 1,000 points. So you're going to want to use that additional scored section just to provide you with a higher score if possible for your bid response. So if you could, you want to check that section to make sure if you are able to offer some of those answers in that section, you can. Next, we have our Jagger bidder instructions demonstration. Before I start this demonstration, I wanted to make you guys aware of a few tools that's available to you. This demonstration is going to be very high level. It's just going to be a summary of what the system looks like, how to upload a file, and what it looks like, and how you need to focus on some key points for your bid. It is not a detailed step-by-step instructional. We actually offer those tools. We have a video if you need a demonstration. Let's see if I can find this. If you need a demonstration of a walkthrough, we have located this. This is recorded, so you can come back and grab this link if you need to. It's a supplier response instructional. It's a video that will walk you through the registration and the actual bidding, responding to the bid. So if you need to, you can come to this tool that will help you. Also, within the event itself, we have attachment G. It's the exact same thing. It's not in video format. It's just a paper document. Well, it will walk you through the actual bidding of your response of your bid. So now I'm going to take you to, before I do that, if you guys were actually a registered vendor with the state of Georgia, you should have actually received this announcement. It's an invite. It's an invite to participate in the bid. So this orange section here, all you need to do is click on that and you'd be in the live event. So you should have received one of these invites if you were already pre-registered. And once again, you need to pre-register in order to participate in the bid. So there are several ways that you can actually get to a live bid, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to take you through the Georgia Procurement Registry. That's where we house all of our state public bids. Okay, so you want to pull up Georgia Procurement Registry. You want to go to its website here, posted on DOAS. Click on the link. So we're now on the Georgia Procurement Registry. I'm going to use the keyword search. As I said, this is a high-level summary. They'll go into detail if you watch the video of what all of these links are on the side and what they're used for. So you want to come into keyword search, and I know that my particular bid has the word information in it. So I'm going to use the word information, and I'm going to go to status of all. I'm going to click search, and right here is what my search yielded. Here is the bid that we're looking for: Information Technology Security Services, RFQC 2024. It gives you the start date. This bid opened on December 1st, and it's going to end on February 1st. That's a lot of time it's giving you to prepare your response. So I'm going to double click on the event, and you have event details here, which we already know who the buyer is. Issuing officer is myself. It gives you a brief description and the NIGP codes associated with this bid. It also gives you the offeror conference information. And here is where we will respond to the bid, where it says respond to event. So you want to click on that and then come down and click on click to respond to submit your response. So we are now entering into Jagger. So this is the screen that will take you into the Jagger tool. As I said, it's reminding you here that you need to be registered. It's going to stop you at this point if you are not registered. I already went through and registered as if I was a vendor, so it should remember me in the system. So I'm going to come down to my event, Information Technology Security Services, and hit respond now. It remembered my email address and my password, so I'm just going to log in. This is how you would actually see the event. We're in a live event. When you come in, you're going to see an orange button here that says you have not intended to bid. I already did that because I tried to prepare for this demonstration, so I clicked the button already, but you'll see that, and if you intend to bid, you're going to need to hit that button. So I'm going to walk you through briefly this navigational pane and how you would navigate through the bid. So the first thing you see here is event details. It's just reiterating the start date, the close date, and the questioned close date, which is Monday, December 11th. We have a summary here. And again, it's giving you some basic information that we already know. It reiterated this information: who I am, my contact information, and a description of the procurement. Next, we have summary, additional event details. This is just giving us information about the offerers conference. It's today, it's at 2:30, and it's via Teams. So next we get to those prerequisites that I mentioned to you. This is where you have to come in and certify. So I've already came in and certified all the statements as if I read them, but of course you guys would actually read them and then come back and check them to note that you certified that you read them. Anytime you see here an arrow, download arrow, you're going to need to click on that file and it'll open up and you can download the file to complete it. So if there's a downloadable file, you're going to need to do that. Let me just show you what this file looks like. It's our IRS publication 1075 acknowledgement form. This form you need to actually sign. So you would sign this and then upload it with your supplier attachments. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So it says upload here. And let's just say you completed the form. You'll come back and say upload. You'll choose a file. I'm just going to choose any file. and you're going to name the file, and you're going to save. Now the file has been updated. And I think I may have mentioned there is a save progress button at the very end here of the screen. You want to do that throughout the course of your response, where when you're bidding, you just hit the save progress so that you don't lose the progress or the work that you've already done. So I'm going to do that here. And I'm going to go on to, as I said, you would have to do that to every one of these forms in this section. And then we'll move on to the buyer attachments. In this screen are the group of attachments. I've placed out in the bid 13 attachments. The last one is just a bidders conference link, so it's not actually a file. So there's 12 files you would need to download and read. The supplier attachment section is where you would upload any of the files that required, as I said, narratives or signatures. And then there's those questions that Mike was talking about. The mandatory questions, the mandatory score questions, the additional score questions, and some general supplier information. Now, take you to what they call items. And this is an RFQC, so we are not submitting pricing for this. We're just getting a qualified list of contractors. So, but for the purposes of bidding, we have to input a dollar amount. So you would come in here and put in the unit price. I think we have $1 million. It's just a placeholder we're asking you to input, and then you would save your progress. But $1 million, estimated start date, these dates don't mean anything. We just need a placeholder in terms of a cost. So you have to put something in the system, or it won't allow you to move forward. And that's under the items section. Then I wanted you to see the Q&A board. This is where you would come and place all of your questions. Let's just say at the close of this conference, you didn't get your question in. You can always come here to ask your question. However, remember, we have a deadline, which is Monday, the close of business day. So you need to get your questions in by Monday. I'd actually come out here and answer all questions. So you can see here where I've already started answering some questions that have come in, most of which are conference related and things of that nature. They will not know who's actually asked the question, but you'll be able to see the question and the answer. And this is very important, the Q&A board. You know, you have access to calling me or emailing me. However, I will ask you to put your question in writing so that I can post it to the board. So the Q&A board is really important, but you want to remember that you have until Monday, the close of business, to post the questions. Lastly, we come to the review and submit. So down here, I noticed that the submit response is grayed out. Does anyone want to place in the chat why they think that I can't submit at this time? Why do you think the system is not enabling me to submit? You just go ahead and place that in the chat really quickly. Am I seeing any responses?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right, they're incomplete documents here. So right here, you'll see green check marks that indicate when you're finished a section. If the section is not complete, you're not going to get a green check mark, and the system will not allow you to submit your bid. So you're going to want to make sure you have green check marks here, or it will not allow you to submit, and here in the navigational pane. So that includes our overview of the Jagger Bidder Instructional Tool. And I'll just get back to the presentation. I also wanted to mention that there is technical support available for you. If you have issues signing on, password resets, uploading or downloading files, all things of this nature, you can reach out to the Procurement Help Desk at 404-657-6000 or at the email presented on the slide. I would suggest just calling them because they're there from 8 to 5 every day, and they can answer your questions pretty quickly. So next, there are things that we want you guys to remember when you're bidding. And some of this is going to sound redundant, but I can't state some of these things enough just so that you know the importance of them. You must register with Team Georgia Marketplace to place a bid. You're going to want to submit your bid responses early. Sometimes we have problems in the system when you're trying to download and it clocks and clocks and clocks, or upload documents and it's clocking. So you don't want to wait until the last minute or the last day to submit your bid and when you have several files to upload. So you just want to get your responses in early. You want to save your progress during your submission. Once again, you're going to read and acknowledge all of those certifying statements. And you need to be advised that there are various documents to upload with narrative responses. Be sure to upload all the files that are required with signatures and narrations into those supplier attachment section. Also, your bid can be revised and resubmitted. If at one point you've completed your bid and you've uploaded it and you're done, you can always revise that bid, withdraw it and revise it up into the close date. And these are the schedule of events. These are dates that we deemed important for you guys to remember concerning the solicitation. We posted the event on December 1st. The Bidders Conference is today, December 8th. You want to remember that the final day to submit the questions is Monday at, it says 5 p.m., but the system, it looks like it says 11:30 p.m. So you may have longer. So on Monday, that's the deadline, that's the cutoff. And the answers will be posted on December 18th, so you can come in after that day and see all of the answers to the questions. As I said, we will be taking questions here, but for those that are not answered in this format, you can post them on the Q&A board. And the bid response is due. So this bid actually closes on February 1st. So from the time you receive those answers, it's about 43 days that you have to put your bid response together and upload all your files. That's a lot of time, but again, you don't want to wait to the last minute. And the anticipated award date will be posted in Jagger. So we get to the question and answer portion of the conference. Fernando, I'm going to ask that you assist me in any questions that were placed in the chat so that.
You only have one for the moment.
Oh, that's
In
good.
So in the mandatory scored requirements document under security program assessment, it states supplier must provide a sample anonymized / redacted reports for each in scope assessment under this RFQ-C or describe explain the absence of such a report. Question: if the sample was originally a classified and/or CUI document and cannot be redacted, what should the supplier state? Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm understanding the question to be is if it's a redacted or it seems like it's a question about files that are confidential or redacted.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Well, we have a whole section in the RFQ-C document and in the master service agreement, I believe, that pertains to trade secrets and redacted information. So I'm going to defer this question because it's a lengthy question to the Q&A board. I'm going to post the answer, but just so that you know, you can read through that section. I'm going to tell you what section it is. to get the answer to that, and I will post the answer to this in the Q&A board. Let me
Okay.
just see, since it's the only question, what area?
No, we have two
Yeah,
more.
I can actually speak to that kind of briefly
Okay.
because I think I know what they're asking here. So just so you understand, the intent here is to see an example of your actual work, to be able to assess the quality of what you have put into the work. So what we're not looking for is a template that somebody copied off the internet, right? So if you want to submit a sample of a document that has been anonymized, so you remove the name of the entity that you have, this is not a case of like, we want to go talk to the references. That's not what this is. So let's just say, for example, you did an assessment for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, right? And you did 853 assessment. You can remove any reference to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You can remove any and all, or obfuscate or anonymize any IP addresses, any domain names, any host names, etc. But we are looking for a copy, for an actual work product. Not just, hey, we found we Googled and found this cool, assessment template. So this is what we're going to use. We want to see the work that you have performed. And I'm not necessarily looking for a document that's so heavily redacted that, you can't read it or can't make sense of it. So that's why I say that it should be anonymized. So anonymized is more important than redacted because, you can substitute, U.S. Department of Agriculture with, Bob's Lawn Service if you want, or whatever you want to call it. So that it actually is not a classified document. Hopefully that answers your question.
The next question we have is, how many companies are in the current contract? We were counting and we find 7. Then the next one is, if we have an MSA with GTA currently, are we required to contract with the MSA in the solicitation? Yes. This is a brand new solicitation. It does not take into account what's in the past. We will produce new MSAs, and whatever MSA that you had before that is not relevant to IVMV, or that is relevant to IVMV, PM, sorry, I am crossing my, that is relevant to security, that MSA will sunset, and this is the new MSA that will come out of it. You have to participate to get a contract with us. And the last, yes.
I guess Mike, do you know how many incumbents we have currently? Is it 7?
That's how many contracts we found.
Okay. All right. So it is
And
7.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry. I'm
last-
sitting here talking to the mute button. Yeah, I believe it is 7.
Okay.
So the next one is, typically, can the service be provided in a hybrid model? US, Canada, India, or US based only?
So state policy requires that access to state data be performed by those who reside in the in the jurisdictional, boundaries of the United States. So for companies that are performing assessments, you could certainly be have foreign offices, or perhaps even be a foreign-owned company. But the only people that can have access to state data are those who are basically legal citizens of the U.S., and the data cannot transverse outside of the U.S.
Thank you. There's 2 more. There are several requirements, for example, of assessments that a supplier has completed for other customers. Can the government provide an example of these assessments?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I would expect that the example assessment comes from the company that is wanting to be considered. I would need more clarity for what that question is asking.
Okay. The next question is, in penetration tests, what key indicators or parameters do you prioritize when identifying gaps in incident response readiness? And are there specific areas of concern you would like to emphasize, or you would like emphasized?
So for a penetration test, we Officer Information Security, we look at it in the perspective that every penetration test and it's going to be like every engagement. There's going to be specific rules of engagement for that pen test. The environment will dictate what is being pen tested, and or it's I'm just going to say it's going to be based upon the engagement is the best answer I can give you. For penetration testing, what we're looking for is capabilities across the usage of, all different tools and methodologies to include cloud, on-prem, outside looking in, inside looking out, east-west movement type penetration testings, compromised credentials, no credentials, all of the above. So there's no real one area.
Okay. Then the next question is, can the vendor provide a single report out of all reports asked? An example, penetration testing and assessments only?
Not sure I follow you there because a penetration test report and a assessment report are completely different documents. If you wanted to, if you're asking, can you create one PDF that has all of that in there? I think that kind of goes against the guidelines of the way that the documents and files are supposed to be uploaded and named. So I would encourage breaking those reports out separately and clearly uploading them so that they're clearly tagged to the appropriate area and evaluated appropriately.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like it's asking. It's asking if they can
Yeah.
combine them. So you're
'Cause
saying no.
Yeah, any ambiguity on our part will unfortunately probably make it the assumption that you didn't contribute the artifact. So if I were you, I would want to very clearly state and very clearly show that this report is the security assessment report sample, or this report is the response to, here's the tools that we utilize and the way that these tools are used, right? So that they're evaluated in their appropriate sections.
Okay, that's the last question we had.
So, okay. So if I'm seeing no additional questions, I will say this concludes our bidders conference. Once again, if you have questions that you haven't already asked in this format, you can go out to the Q&A board and you can post those questions and the answers will be there after December 18th. We have another question.
Is
Is
there
there
a way for the
the
scoring?
Yes.
Yes.
So no, yes and no. Each question is scored by its own merit against itself, right? We're not comparing and contrasting one company to another. The scoring, I believe, and keep me honest here, Yolanda or Fernando, I think the scoring is part of the how things are scored. Is that shared with the respondents?
No,
not
we
no,
don't.
not how they're scored. No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, each response is given a score between the folks doing the evaluation based upon the merit of the answer in and of itself.
Right. We have exceptional, good, average. I think there's good or it's just average, adequate, and poor. And then we have parameters in which the scoring are tied to each of those.
Right.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's excellent, good, adequate, marginal, poor, and no response.
Marginal. I forgot marginal. Yeah, and
Yeah.
poor.
Yeah, and each of those responses has a numerical weight or numerical value, excuse me, not weight, attached to
Yes.
it
Yes.
that will be cumulatively, assessed for the overall score.
Okay, we
we
have
have-
one other question.
So there's another question. We have done penetration testing only in the past. We have no experience with other assessments, other assessment reports which are asked in the solicitation. Am I eligible to submit the RFP?
So I would say that if you don't meet the required, you're certainly welcome to submit, but Yeah, I think if you don't meet the minimum required assessments, then it probably you would not be considered.
Right, and do recall, we have those mandatory questions, and we have the services that are considered mandatory, and there are 4 mandatory services. And as Mike mentioned, those are going to be requirements that we are going to need you guys to have coming on board as a qualified contractor. Do references need to come from public sector clients only, or is private sector experience accepted? I think I can answer this one. I don't think we have any parameters placed on our references. So you're able to submit any references that you have, private or public.
Yeah, but I mean, bearing in mind that this is a public solicitation, those would certainly be, references that would probably be recognized outside of a large company or well-known brand that perhaps you've done work for. Bob's Lawn Service, while I'm sure they are a very reputable company, may not be the best.
Please confirm mandatory questions all need to be responded to with a yes to be considered for award. That would be a yes. It's a yes or no
confirmed.
answer. It was a yes or no answer, but if you are saying no to one of those questions, you will not be able to continue with the bidding process. Okay, maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll conclude the bidders conference. I don't see many more questions coming. They're straggling. So, okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I will say that this concludes our.
Real quick question,
One
and you can
last
simply tell me
question.
a yes or no, Fernando or Yolanda. Do we say how long this contract or this pool is going to be in place for until it's back up for rebid or reassessment?
5 years. That's
5
the
years.
Yeah, so
So
just
once you're
FYI, this will be the last time we do this for the next 5 years. So
right, so once you're qualified as a qualified contractor, the qualifying period is 5 years. We do have something else that someone put in the chat. Could you elaborate on the essential expertise and preferred qualifications or certifications for personnel involved in the engagements?
Well, so each of the personnel is going to be dependent on the engagement, right? And depends on what their role is, right? So if, for example, if you have someone who's performing the function of a project manager, I would be looking for a PMP or equivalent, certification or credential. For someone doing risk assessments, I would be looking for someone with, a CISA or a CISSP, perhaps a CISM, maybe looking for relevant experience in those areas. Someone who's a pen tester, I'm looking for certifications and qualifications such as an ethical hacker certification or a resume that shows, 5 years of pen testing, right, experience, and competent knowledge of the tools that are used. And I guess I'll give you a freebie. I'll throw out a freebie. If someone who puts in for the tools question says, well, we use, Kali Linux and that's our tool, that's immediately going to get a big fat doesn't qualify. What I'm looking for is the tools that you use on the Kali Linux distribution and how you utilize them. What are they for? Right. So that's the detail that I'm interested in knowing your company or your firm's expertise at, not, can you Google what do hackers use or what do pen testers use? Right. So, and I don't mean to say that in a belittling way at all, but you might be surprised at what some of the things that we've seen. So hopefully that gives you the answer to your question. Basically, what is the industry standard for the role that person would be performing?
Okay. Okay, we'll take one more question if the participants have, or we'll just conclude this conference if there are no more questions. Once again, I want to thank you guys for your interest in this solicitation.
There's one more question. In
Okay.
regards to question 211, mandatory question section, will resellers who also provide services or partner with the subcontractor be deemed acceptable?
Section 20, resellers who also provide services. I think you can
It's-
answer that, Mike.
I'll have to probably table that one, Joe.
Okay.
The intent is not to get a provider in here who then goes and subs and grabs who they can at engagement time. It's really designed for continuity, but let me take it back to the table and discuss it, and we'll get an answer posted to the forum.
Thanks, Mike. So we have one more on points, and Matthew Clemens is asking that. That will be the last question.
Is it fair to assume all points have the same value? Incorrect.
No, they don't. So, and that will be the last question. So, this concludes our bidders conference for the last time. And once again, thanks again for your interest in the solicitation. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Thanks,
you all. We
Mike.
appreciate your time.
Nikki. Thanks, Fernando.
Thank you all.
Bye.